Hey, what's up? Everybody loves crab cakes. Literally, everybody loves them. It's that simple. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make a super easy to make crispy lump crab cake at home. We're gonna make our own tartar sauce from scratch. I'm gonna get into it all. So if that sounds like fun, stick around. Let's get started. So in researching this video, I kept asking myself the same question, which is, why aren't crab cakes better? And it comes down to the simple fact that crab cakes in restaurants are usually filled with eggs, mayo, and breadcrumbs, other fillers, because crab is really expensive and it's hard to be profitable unless you lean really heavy on those things. But we've all had the result. It's pasty and bland and it doesn't really taste like crab. For me, the only route to get to a great crab cake is more crab. So more crab is number one, of course, but what else do we need to consider when we're talking about the perfect crab cake? For me, number two is definitely minimal additions. That means less filler overall. We're looking just to support the crab flavor and to lightly bind it together. That's it. Number three, a great crab cake has to be really crispy. We're gonna be hitting ours with a top secret little dose of panko breadcrumbs on the outside to do just that. Number four, a thoughtful, tangy, homemade tartar sauce that's heavy on the caper, the lemon, and there's gonna be a bunch of pickles in there as well. And lastly, number five, we have to have a buttery crab cake. We're gonna be frying them in butter, basting them in butter. It's gonna be really rich and super fun. So in my mind, those are the things that we're paying attention to get a great crab cake. To get started, of course, we're gonna be talking about the crab meat. Today, I'm using a lump crab meat. Sometimes this is also referred to as a super lump. This is blue crab from the Atlantic Ocean, and it is pasteurized, meaning that it's cooked in the can to a pretty high temperature to make it more shelf stable in the fridge. To get my crab cake mix going, I'm gonna flip this 1 pound can of crab meat into a medium stainless steel bowl. To that, we're gonna add 75 grams of nice mayo. I made this mayo myself, and if you want the recipe and my thoughts on mayonnaise overall, reference the potato salad video linked down below. Also, if you see some excess crab water hanging out in your bowl, at this point, just take it over to the sink and drain it off real quick. Once we got that drained, I'm gonna add in 65 grams of panko breadcrumbs, 1 whole egg, 25 grams of Dijon mustard, 5 grams of hot sauce, 3 grams of salt, 3 grams of black pepper, 15 grams of Worcestershire, and I'm gonna grab a bunch of chives here, run my knife through those real quick. All day we need about 2 tablespoons or 10 grams of minced chives. So I'm gonna grab a rubber spatula and I'm gonna start to mix this crab. But here's a quick disclaimer. We really want to maintain this lumpy crab texture. As you can see, I'm just very gently folding all this up to combine. Part of the 28 bucks that we paid on this crab went into making sure that it was large and chunky. If you're extra concerned that your crab might fall apart, I recommend maybe mixing everything but the crab together ahead of time and then folding the crab in. What we're trying to avoid more than anything is crab cakes with no texture. This is a crucial step in making sure that ours have some. All I'm doing here is just scooping and folding, and after about 15 to 20 of those movements, we should be combined but still chunky. And at that point, it should look like this. We've got plenty of nice large crab chunks in there, and things are well combined and starting to be bound together. To shape these into actual crab cakes, we need to grab a small sheet tray lined with parchment and a 1/2 cup measuring spoon. And by the way, this recipe makes 6 roughly 4-ounce crab cakes. To shape these, we're gonna gently fill our 1/2 cup scoop with the crab mixture. I'm pressing that cup with firm pressure to make things fuse together a little bit. Don't be too afraid to put pressure on the crab meat in there. It really shouldn't break down. Once you've got it packed nice and tight, we're gonna simply slap it into the palm of our hand to release it. I went a little gung-ho snacking on this crab meat off camera, so I'm a little bit short of my 4 ounces per cake. These are about 3.5 ounces total. And I also probably filled the first couple of these cups a little bit heavy, and I had to sort of adjust as I went. But don't worry about it. We're going for a very rough 3.5 to 4 ounce range total. You just want to fill your 1/2 cup about 90% of the way with crab. Once we're all shaped, we're going to throw these crab cakes into the freezer to firm them up. And to clarify, I'm putting this in the freezer so that when we pull it to bread it in a second, it won't fall apart. So after 20 minutes in the freezer, we're gonna grab the crab cakes, give them a poke, make sure they're nice and firm, and I'm gonna grab an egg so I can crack that into a small container. I'm gonna give that a quick whisk with a fork, and I'm gonna walk it over to the sink and get a splash of water. Give that a stir. Into our second container, we're gonna pour out about 1 cup of panko. Working one at a time, we're gonna gently dunk the crab cakes into the egg mixture and then into the panko. After that, gently flip them over and repeat that. We don't need a ton of breadcrumbs to stick to the outside here. Again, we mainly want crab texture and flavor more than anything else. So we want just enough panko to create a breadcrumb barrier between the tender, juicy crab meat and the butter in the pan. I'm gonna repeat this for all 6, and then we're gonna set them aside and preheat a large non-stick pan over medium-high heat. Into that pan, I'm gonna measure about a ½ cup of olive oil and 2 to 3 tablespoons of butter. We can use the butter here as a really good indicator of how hot the pan is. Once the butter is melted and foaming, the pan should be hot enough to fry the crab cakes. At that point, we're gonna drop in the cakes one at a time and fry them over medium heat for about 4 to 5 minutes per side. The medium heat here helps keep our butter from browning too fast. Anytime we're cooking with butter that's not clarified, we really need to watch the heat. After that 4 to 5 minutes, the cakes are looking really well browned and quite crisp on the bottom. I'm gonna flip these over and continue to fry them on the second side for about 4 to 5 more minutes. After about 1 minute on that second side, I'm gonna grab a big deep spoon and I'm gonna start basting these cakes with the excess fat. This gives them a little bit more depth of butter flavor, but it also sets the outsides better and makes the cakes more crisp and structurally sound. So I'm just gonna continue to baste and fry these for about 3 minutes or so. And at this point, the cakes are really nice and golden brown and have a really deep, crispy crust on the outside, but they're not fully cooked. In the restaurant, I would just throw my pan into a hot oven, but at home, I like to replicate that by flipping these over onto the same sheet tray that we froze them on and putting them in a 425-degree oven to bake for 5 to 6 minutes. So while those are in the oven, we're gonna make our tartar sauce. And this is kind of like a hybrid sauce for me. It's definitely still tartar sauce, but it's also kind of like remoulade. So to make this sauce, we're gonna grab a bunch of parsley and run our knife through it 3 or 4 times. All day we need about 10 grams or 2 heaping tablespoons of chopped parsley. Once we got that chopped, we're gonna scoop it into our medium stainless steel bowl, and then I'm gonna throw down 100 grams of bread and butter pickles. All we're doing here is just running the knife back and forth a few times and then scooping them into the bowl. Behind that, we're gonna chop up 20 grams of drained capers, scoop those into the bowl, and finally, we're gonna grab a chunk of red onion, maybe like a quarter of a small one, and I'm gonna give that a small dice. We definitely want this onion broken down quite a bit, so run your knife through it again if you need to. Of course, we're gonna give these a rinse under cold water to remove that raw sulfur flavor that's gonna dominate the sauce if we don't. So we've got everything chopped. Now into that bowl, we're gonna measure 175 grams of nice, clean tasting mayonnaise, 40 grams of Dijon mustard, the juice of half of a lemon, or about 1 tablespoon, 30 grams of Sriracha sauce. This is pretty specific. Hot sauce in my mind probably doesn't work as good. And finally, 1 clove of garlic. And yeah, I'm letting you guys see who I really am on the inside. I use a garlic press, and I'm comfortable with it. Grab a spoon and stir everything up well to combine. When it looks light orange and things are homogeneous, give it a taste. It should be bright and full of interesting texture. The caper, the onion, the pickle, they're all working hard. One last thing that I think this dish needs to be finished off properly is a tart, tangy, crunchy little salad. Crab cakes with remoulade or tartar sauce alone, totally delicious, but it's a little bit one note. I want to bring some added dimension, a little bit of bitterness, a little bit of sourness that kind of pops through all that fat and richness. To make this little salad, we're going to chop up about a ½ head of frisee. I'm going to throw that into my medium bowl, and I'm going to grab a fennel bulb and shave that on the mandolin. I'm looking for about maybe 1 cup of shaved fennel here total. I'm going to throw that in with the frizz, and to dress this up, squirt into a little container 1 tablespoon of Dijon mustard. We're going to add the juice of half of a lemon, and we're going to top that off with about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Pop a lid on that container, give it a really good shake to emulsify things up, and then pour that onto the frisee. Oh, and add a small pinch of salt here to season things up. And that's it. We're gonna give it a toss, and give it a taste. The frisee is bitter and crisp, and the fennel is sweet. It's really aromatic. This is the perfect, refreshing complement to a fried cake covered in mayonnaise. After about 5 to 6 minutes in the oven at 425, I'm gonna pull out my crab cakes and check them. I'm putting an instant read thermometer in there. 165 is what I'm looking for. That's gonna let me know that the egg inside the cake is fully set. Okay, everything's looking good, and I think I covered all the details here, so let's eat a crab cake. So for me, that's like a perfect crab cake. This is a simple dish that's usually abused, and if we just give it a little bit of time and attention, of course, it's gonna be excellent. And before I get out of here, I just wanna say a huge thank you to to everybody who supported this channel on Ko-fi. All that support went directly into buying a bunch of crab to make this video. So if you guys like what we're doing, click through, maybe take a look, consider supporting us over there. It means a lot. It goes a long way. As always, guys, thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you for sticking around, and we'll see you next time.